What is up, ladies and gentlemen, listeners of the Didn't Ask podcast? Welcome back to another episode of this well known, I don't fucking know what I'm trying to say, podcast, the Didn't Ask podcast. We're back once again, episode 48. Man, that 50 is coming up very soon. It's fucking crazy to think that I've done so many episodes and I've been here for so many weeks. But it's actually true. So yeah, it's pretty fun. How is everybody doing? How are you doing? How are your loved ones doing? I hope you had a good weekend and an absolute amazing week. I hope you were productive. I hope you got a little bit of rest the past weekend. I personally did too, I guess. Yeah, that was not very busy for me this weekend. No big things happening in the fighting world. I mean, there was a UFC, and I've still not seen the main event of that, so I might want to pick that up today. So just so I can say I finished it. But yeah, it's been pretty chill for me the couple of days, and it's actually really nice. So let's jump into the first question immediately, because why the fuck do we wanna waste time? Life is already so busy. So let's just jump into the first question of today, asked by user Yenmac. And they ask, in case of an apocalypse, what could function as a form of currency? The thing is, we have talked about this for quite a long time. Like, what are we going to do when the apocalypse hits? What are we going to use as our currency? And people right now are investing a lot of money in cryptocurrencies, which I guess is an interesting way to look at things. But personally, I don't really see the point of cryptocurrency as of right now, because cryptocurrency is super much based on the fact that you can transfer your cryptocurrency into real money, and therefore it has value. But when the apocalypse hits, we probably won't have energy, or at least we don't have some form of energy, maybe a very small form of energy. So at that point, you cannot even use your bitcoins because you cannot verify the fucking bitcoins through the blockchain and shit like that. So then what the fuck are you gonna do? So if we're gonna look then at other things that happen in the apocalypse, like what do people use in the apocalypse? And it's probably just like rare resources. If we look at Fallout, they use bottle caps, I believe, from the top of my head, which is an interesting thing, I guess, because in the case of an apocalypse, bottles won't be made, and so we have bottle caps because we don't need no bottles anymore. So, and of course, a bottle cap you cannot, like one of those metal caps, you cannot put back on the bottle, at least not easily. So that would be a very interesting point. But somebody here in the comments has a very interesting point, and it says the username is Planet Electron, and they said allergy meds. And I want to take it even further. It's just meds of any form are gonna fucking skyrocket. Like right now, we live in a time where meds themselves are already some form of payment, because of course we have drug addicts. If you are watching Euphoria, you know exactly what the fuck is going on. Meds are just so important. And of course, again, we're going back to the power thing. It's like when power is not a thing anymore, how are we going to produce more meds? We aren't. So therefore, we're going to use meds as a bartering tool to be like, hey, I'm going to give you fucking a fucking 20 paracetamol for your goddamn carrots or whatever. Shit like that are going to be very important in a post-apocalyptic world. Because, again, people need their medicine. I need my medicine. You know what I mean? So having that is very important, and it gives you so much leverage because meds aren't being made, and therefore they become very valuable. So going back to the question asked by user Yanmac, in the case of an apocalypse, what could function as a form of currency? And first thing, we're going the Fallout route, and that is bottle caps other option brought up by Planet Electron, and they say allergy meds. And again, I want to take that even broader, just meds altogether, because anything that is, meds related, you're gonna catch a lot of fucking money for that. You're gonna catch a lot of money right now in the current climate we're living in. So let alone when the apocalypse hits and we don't have access to medicine widely. So yeah, thank you for your question, Jan Mac. Moving on to the second question of today, asked by user Mast Resort, and they ask, people who eat at McDonald's, why? I, like many others, am pretty much a fan of McDonald's, even though I don't really eat there often. But McDonald's is one of those things where it's just like it's been ingrained as a small child into your brain that McDonald's is the fun place. It's thanks to marketing, it's thanks to your parents. And it's just, yeah, like years and years and years of, I don't really want to say propaganda, but it's just marketing. Years and years of marketing that they have put into making McDonald's the place to be. From the giant M signal next to the highways and freeways or whatever that you can see from miles and miles away, to the toys that they put in Happy Meals and shit like that. There are all so many small things that you don't necessarily think about right now, but still have to take into consideration when thinking about McDonald's. So again, I feel like it's been years and years of basically indoctrinating children to make sure that, oh, McDonald's is something that's kind of okay. So we know that McDonald's is bad for you, right? So therefore, we see McDonald's as like a reward of some sort, because it's so bad that you cannot have it every day, but it's not bad enough to completely skip out on it, at least for most people. So it's really funny that because of how bad it is, you actually made it some form of a reward, because you always go to the McDonald's like, oh, I had my soccer practice, or I just won the national championship in darts or whatever the fuck, and then you go, oh, we're going to McDonald's, yay! And that when you get older, I can just go to the McDonald's. I don't even need to win something or compete in the sport or whatever. I can just go to the McDonald's, and therefore, again, you're gonna have the same thing with your kids, and you're gonna keep growing that. So, going back to the question asked by user Mass Resort, people who eat at McDonald's, why? I think it's just a combination of it being easy. It's fast food, so you're gonna get it quickly. It's not that expensive, even though there are places you can eat that are way better and are basically the same price, but that doesn't matter right now. So it's that, the price, it's marketing, and it's just hearsay, I guess. It's just mouth to mouth, and it's been the indoctrination of children that we have been doing for a very long time, where it's just like, hey, McDonald's is a reward. You can only have it once or twice in a week, maybe even in a month. But now you can have you have the opportunity to do it whenever the fuck you want. So yeah, why the fuck wouldn't you? Thank you for your question, Master Resort. Moving on to the third question of today, asked by user Rayundo, and they ask, what is your most unpopular musical opinion? For me, that would be that Rent is not a good musical. I mean, there are many musicals. I feel like there are at least a couple that I've seen that are, in my opinion, bad movies, but still are tentpoles of the musical industry. One being Rent and the other being Cats. Both are absolutely outrageous in different forms, but mostly Cats is the one that's the most egregious of the bunch. But yeah, to me, they don't really say much. And I don't know. Like, I watched Tick Tick Boom on Netflix, and I fucking love that shit so much that I really started getting into, like, oh, what has Jonathan Larson done more of? Like, what did he do before he died? And of course, Rent is the biggest. It's the biggest one that he did, the biggest musical, because it was also the last one he did before he passed away. So I was just like, well, I've heard people talk about Rent, so let me watch Rent. And I was bored out of my fucking mind watching the movie Rent. Because there are multiple different versions. I believe you have like the actual theater production that is being filmed, and then you have the movie that has basically the whole cast, I believe, of the musical Rent, and then you have the, I don't even know what channel it's on, but the fucking interpretation, modern day, whatever, the live. It's called Rent Live, I believe, actually, which is like the TV production that they do, because they did it for Grease and they have done it for Annie and whatever. So I've watched the movie first, and then I was just like, "Hmm, this is actually kind of boring. I don't really like this. I know some of these people that are in the movie, but the music isn't that entertaining for me." And there are very few moments in that movie that I'm just going like, "Oh man, that's awesome and that's recognizable and that's, at least for me." Again, I had never seen Rent, but I really loved Tick Tick Boom, so I was just like, well, let me go back to what Jonathan Roth has done to see if that translates. But it didn't, for me at least. So then I watched the Rent live performance, and while it was a little better, it still wasn't something that I really was just like, oh, I am enjoying this. Again, it was a little better because they cut out some of the parts from the movie because, of course, it's a stage performance, so they want to go through things a little quicker. But yeah, like I still didn't like it. And then we have Cats. That is an interesting thing. I would say I saw Cats the movie in theaters, and I basically saw it as a joke. Cats is an interesting movie, and it has an interesting story to tell once you get to the story part, but on service level, it's fucking weird. It's just a bunch of fucking cats introducing themselves, saying like, "Hey, I should be going to heaven," basically, which is fucking weird as a concept as well. And then it's just them singing songs that have nothing to do with one another because they're just introducing themselves. And again, it's an iconic musical in many ways, but it's not that good. And it's fucking crazy to think that both Rent and Cats, for me at least, didn't resonate and have such a long history in the musical theater business, from Broadway shows for years and years and years to movies. So yeah, going back to the question asked by Rayundo, what is your most unpopular musical opinion? And that is that some of the most popular musicals are absolute dog shit, in my opinion. Yeah, I mentioned Cats and Rent. Rent is for me just super mediocre. I would say it doesn't shine in any way, at least in my opinion. And Cats, I think that Cats is just sadly just nothing really. But Cats still has, at least for me, some good songs that stand out. I think about Skimble Shanks and fucking McCavity and stuff like that. Some of them are really good to listen to, but yeah, I think that both of them aren't that great. Thank you for your question, though. Moving on to the fourth question of today, asked by user Spiritual Spectre, and they ask, "What's your favorite Pokemon?" Now, I did my research a little bit. I have the website, the Pokemon website, official Pokemon website open, and I have loaded the complete Pokedex, which puts us as 998 Pokemon in total, which is a shit ton. And half of these Pokemon I barely know because I've never played Sword and Shield and I've never played Sun and Moon, right? Those are the ones. So some of these Pokemon are just completely unknown to me. But if I think about Pokemon, then one of my favorite Pokemon is Chimchar. Chimchar is such a fun, cool Pokemon, and he evolves into Infernape, which is so fucking cool. yeah, I don't really know what to say about it. He's one of my favorites. And of course, last year, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl came out once again in the new style, I guess you can say, in the remake. And of course, I picked Chimchar because he's the dude. He's my man. So I picked that one. Now I'm looking through the Pokedex and I'm thinking about Mytiena, Puchena and Mytiena. I really like that version because back in the day we used to play a game called Pokemon Arena, I believe it was called, and it was I don't know what it was called, but it was like a website where you could play Pokemon in your browser, and it was super fun. And I would always pick Puchena and Mytiena because those were my dudes. Those were fun. They look cute, but also they look. So Puchena looks very cute, and then evolves into Mychena, and then you were like, "What the fuck is this shit?" And I don't want to be close anywhere near them. So yeah, those two would be on the list for me. I'm slowly, while I'm talking, scrolling through the whole Pokedex, and I'm not really seeing much. I want to give a shout out to Lucario because that's a dope ass Pokemon. I am looking, but oh, Ludicolo is one of my favorites as well, and that's mostly because of the cartoon or the anime. I guess it's an anime. Yeah, it's an anime, I guess, because I believe Brock has one, and then he goes Ludicolo, Ludicolo, and I fucking love that. So yeah, going back to the question asked by user Spiritual Spectre, what is your favorite Pokemon? Easy answer would be Chimchar. I really like Chimchar, and he evolves into Infernape, which looks fucking dope. I would say Ludico though, Mychena, Puchena. I feel like it's a good selection. So thank you for your question, Spiritual Spectre. And now moving on to the final question of the Ask Reddit subreddit for today, coming from user Unholy453, and they ask, you wake up. It's September 2009. You remember everything from your life so far. What is the first thing you do? It's the easy answer. You invest in some shit. You invest in fucking Apple and Microsoft and whatever. Because you know, maybe even PlayStation or Sony, I should say, and Microsoft and Disney or whatever. Because we know that all those fucking companies are gonna skyrocket. Skyrocket. So we're just gonna get that money easily, fam. That would be my answer. Until you, Unholy 453. You wake up in September 2009. You remember everything from your life so far. What's the first thing you do? And it's invest in stock. I will buy Microsoft stock. I will buy Apple stock. I would buy Activision stock. Shit like that. I would just make sure that before, because 2009 is around the dot-com crisis, right? So that would mean that most of the websites are fucking useless anyways. So you invest a shit ton of money, or at least all the money that I would have, invest that into, again, Apple, Microsoft, Sony, Disney, shit like that, to make sure that I'm gonna be loaded in a couple of years. Thank you for your question, Unholy453. And now, moving on to the final question of today, of course coming from the MID Asshole subreddit. And this one coming from user Mal4907677. And they ask, am I the asshole for flipping out on my husband for cancelling my job interview? New account because he deleted my mail. So, this might sound petty, but let me explain. In 2019, I could no longer work because of my physical disabilities. No company wanted to hire me for the past couple of years, and my husband said that it's better I just stay at home and not worry about working. I agreed, and he's become the breadwinner. Then, it's like a switch that flipped in my head. Because chores were 50-50, but after I lost my job, they became 100% for me. Keep in mind, my physical disabilities had developed. His excuse for not doing anything to help is that I stay at home 24/7. I told him that's not fair, especially since I suffer from physical discomfort. He made a deal with me and promised that everything will be 50-50 once I start working again. I told him I would find a job and he laughed and said, "Good luck." I remember this vividly because of the strange laugh that I never heard him laugh before. I started looking for a job again for months, but had no luck till a friend's husband found me a potential job at a company that would have hired me due to the physical strains. I was so excited and felt like I'm capable again, despite the struggle. They scheduled an interview with me, and when I told my husband, he looked red in the face but said nothing. 2 days ago, I found out that my job interview got cancelled. I found out when my friend reached out and asked why I did that, but I said I had no idea. I checked my email and found nothing because I didn't send anything to the company. My husband came home and admitted cancelling the interview. I asked why, and he said this job had a lot of requirements and didn't seem fit to be accepted there. So to spare me the heartache of being rejected, he just cancelled the interview. I flipped out on him and told him he destroyed my one and only chance at landing a job, but he had said he was just feeling concerned about my well-being. I told him he probably didn't want me to work because he didn't want to split home chores and seemed offended by that. He threw a fit about how unreasonable and selfish I was to even consider a job without speaking to him first. I told him I don't get involved in his work life. He called me horrible for accusing him of bad intention, then went out to meet his friends to probably vent because one of them told me that my husband is looking out for me, but I was being cruel to him by yelling. He has been cold shouldering me since then, deleted my social media accounts claiming that they are bad for my mental health because of the negative effect some of those platforms have. Am I the asshole for yelling at him? Gee, it was a little bit of a long story, but it gave us a lot of context. And user, original poster, your husband is a fucking piece of shit. You should 100% leave that guy because, and the thing is, like, you can see this from the first sentence you wrote. And the first sentence is, new account because he deleted my main. Which means that he has a problem with so many things and he is just taking over your life. And you shouldn't be afraid of being the asshole when you yelled at him because he has done things that are 15 million times worse than you have done. First off, he cancelled your job interview for no reason whatsoever other than he probably just wants to have control over you. And by taking away your job opportunity, he has full control over you because you don't have an income. So by you landing a job that gives you your income, which means that you're financially in somewhat of a stable place, and that's something that he didn't want. So he canceled your job interview. Then he gaslights you by basically accusing you of being a horrible person, or like saying like, oh yeah, you're probably not gonna even land the job, so I canceled it. Like, that's point 3. He canceled the fucking job interview? Fucking weirdo. Like, come on, dude. And then he deleted your social media altogether because somehow it has a negative effect on you? No. This guy is an absolute piece of shit and you should leave him because he is trying to control your life, and by you quitting your job, in some way he achieved that. Because by you not having a job, that means that you're financially dependent on him and not on yourself, and therefore you are now stuck in this place in limbo basically where you cannot leave him because you don't have a job, and you cannot do things on your own because you don't have a job, right? So I would say the easy thing is just leave him because your husband sounds like an abusive piece of shit and he doesn't deserve you. So please leave him. Thank you for your question though. I hope everything works out fine for you in the end. But please leave this man. Thank you for your question. And that has been it for the Didn't Ask podcast for this week. We had some fun questions, some very interesting questions, and a very, very serious one right at the end. But I feel like that's what makes this show, right? There is the combination of philosophical questions and factual based questions and opinion based questions, and it puts everything together and wraps it in with a nice bow on top. So yeah, this was it for me for this week. If you like this podcast, please leave a rating on all your favorite podcast platforms. You are now able to do that on Spotify as well, so please do that. And if you do that on both Spotify and or Apple Podcast, and I see the review, I will read it on this show, so you can get your name heard on this show around the world. And that's especially where this podcast is available. It's available around the world. If you want to know where this podcast is available, you can go to anchor.fm/didn't-ask-pod. That link will be in the show description. And there you can see all the platforms this show is available on. But you can also see a box that says message. And if you press that, it gives you the ability to record a voice message for me asking your personal question. If you don't want your voice to be heard live on air, that's totally fine by me. Just say that up front that you want to stay anonymous, and then I will read your question out myself, so you can still have your question answered, but don't have to hear your voice over the airwaves. I will be back next week, and in the meantime, you can go to tracked.tv and you can see what I'm watching in both TV and in film form. That link will also be in the show description. It's a really fun website. You can see, again, what I'm watching, sometimes even when I'm watching them at the time. So that's a really fun and interesting way to keep up with what I'm watching throughout the week. That link will be in the show description as well. Well, that was all I had to plug for this week. I hope to see you back next time. And, please stay healthy. Take good care of yourself and your loved ones, because they need it. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.